Okay, everybody, let's talk about the exam tomorrow on the social psychology chapter 12. Social psychology is all about how social situations influence our behavior. We kind of make a mistake normally when we see that somebody has done something or that we've done something. We tend to almost always interpret the reason why they did it as to something about them, something within them. Somebody committed a crime, they must be no good. Somebody lost their job, they must not be good at their job. Somebody got divorced, one of them must have betrayed the other or something like that. We really discount the power of situational factors in determining how we behave. So that's what social psychology is all about. And that's really the definition of social psychology. So make sure you know that. By the way, this is a 50-point all multiple choice test, numbers 6 through 12 and number 50. And I will put this in the announcement too. Numbers 6 through 12 and number 50 are extra credit questions. So everybody's going to get credit for those. So don't really worry about those. So you're basically getting 7 automatic points on this test. Once again, it's numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and number 50. So that's a little Christmas present for everybody. Make sure you guys know about persuasion, the difference between persuasion and obedience, the elaboration likelihood model, the difference between the peripheral route of decision making and persuasion and the direct route. Peripheral route is quick, it's intuitive, it's emotional. We make a decision based on 1 or 2 easily accessed cues. The central route is rational, analytical, logical. We really weigh the pros and cons of a decision, and then that's how we make it. In most of our decisions in life are kind of small. They're day-to-day things. Most of them are peripheral route decisions. The really important things in life should be central route decisions. As you can look at modern advertising as an example of a persuasion technique, it's almost exclusively peripheral route stuff. They want to entertain you, make you feel good, so you associate that feeling with the product. People buying a book because Oprah Winfrey recommends it in her book club is an example of a peripheral route cue. If it's good enough for Oprah, it's good enough for me. That's all I care about. If I need to get a gallon of milk or some bottled water or a pop or pick up a loaf of bread, I'll go to a convenience store because in that decision, I want what's closest to me. So I could drive to Walmart and get it cheaper, but all I care about is convenience. That's a peripheral cue that's making my decision, okay? Make sure you guys know what social facilitation and social impairment are. Most of this has to do with how aroused we get nervously, that autonomic arousal that affects our performance and has everything to do with our perceived difficulty of the task. Conformity, we have two ways to conform: normative social influence and informational social influence. Sometimes we conform to fit in, to feel good. And we may even do things that we don't agree with. But the goal is to be a part of a group, to make friends. Sometimes we'll conform because we don't know what to do in a certain situation, but we look to see what others are doing and we copy them because it seems like they know what they're doing. That's informational social influence. Make sure you guys know about the norm of reciprocity. It has everything to do with our survival. It's kind of built into our genes, the idea that part of the benefit of doing things for others is that they will be there for you. So it's a kind of a way of surviving and a way to know that I'm going to help you out. You're going to help me out when I need it. That makes us feel good. We tend to want to pay back people who do things for us. And that comes from this idea of how strong that norm of reciprocity is, not only in society, but in individual people in that society. Make sure you guys study the Milgram obedience study. What are the implications of it? Make sure you understand what attitudes are, how attitudes form. An attitude is an evaluation of something. It's that simple. And we constantly form attitudes about everything. A first impression of a person is an attitude. and it's impossible not to form one. And again, this stems out of the survival instinct. We're natural evaluators. Now, fortunately, in modern times, we don't worry every day if we're going to survive. But let's say you're in combat somewhere, and if any of you are vets, I'm sure you can, find some similarity to this point. The idea that if you're in combat, you're evaluating everything constantly because you never know where the next attack is going to come from. Particularly in the kind of warfare that's been going on in the Middle East lately, you don't know if a woman or a child is carrying a bomb. So you're constantly evaluating things. Well, that instinct doesn't go away just because we're protected and living in Jamestown, New York. We use it. It comes out in the way we evaluate everything we come in contact with. The communication process is discussed in terms of the sender of the message itself, and audience characteristics. Make sure you're familiar with those. Make sure you understand what cognitive dissonance is. It's a very powerful force, probably the most powerful dynamic in human behavior. If I would have my choice, cognitive dissonance is when our life and our thoughts about ourselves are out of line. They don't connect. They're dissonant. Consonance means harmony. Dissonance means disharmony. If I'm playing a song on a piano and I play the wrong note, that's dissonant because that note doesn't go with the other notes and it sounds like it. We want to get rid of dissonance and create harmony within ourselves. So when we have cognitive dissonance, for example, if I think I'm really good at basketball and I play a game and I don't make a single point, I miss 12 shots. Now I've got a cognitive dissonance problem because my performance is way out of line with my perception. So I might make excuses as to why I didn't do well, or I might say that was just one time. But I do things to make myself feel better, to make me feel like my opinion of myself is really going to be consistent in the long run with my life experience. Attribution. Attribution is what causes something. What is the driver or motivator or cause of something in my life or something that happens in your life? And we tend to make an error with attribution. When it comes to other people, when things happen to them, we tend to make what we call a dispositional attribution, which means it's something about them. It's something internal to them. And we make it for a couple reasons. First of all, it makes us feel good, particularly if a bad thing happens to somebody else and we tend to attribute it to who they are, that they're really not that good of a person. Now I feel better about myself in comparison. We also do it because we don't have all the information about what's going on in that person's life like we do about us. And it's the opposite with us. When something good happens to us, we tend to attribute it to something about me. When something bad happens to us, we tend to attribute it to something in the situation. I was sick. I didn't feel good. It was unfair. I wasn't prepared. I didn't know about it. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. All of those things. Because it protects my ego. It protects my feeling about who I am. So we call this difference in how I attribute things in my life compared to people outside of me as the fundamental attribution error. Make sure you know what that is too. Stereotypes, prejudice. Your book talks about this. A stereotype is seeing all members of a certain group as being the same or very, very similar. A stereotype is one of the mental models that drives prejudice. And when we have prejudice, people that are like me in some way, that's my in group. People that are different from me in that way is my out group. And you could pick any aspect of human life to have a stereotype and a prejudice. It could be racially. It could be based on religion. It could be based on sexual orientation. It could be based on occupation, height, weight, hair color, age, anything. One of the theories behind what has caused prejudice on planet Earth is called realistic conflict theory. Make sure you know what that is. Basically, it's the idea that we're competing for limited resources on planet Earth. And when we're competing against another group, we tend to start disliking them. Competition breeds contempt. Look at how much for years, and maybe it's still true, Buffalo Bills fans hated New England Patriots fans. Why? Because the Patriots were always winning the Bills division and prevented the Bills from going to the playoffs. Self-fulfilling prophecy is also related to prejudice in that how we act in a lot of cases determines what we experience in our environment and vice versa. So, for example, if I'm very prejudiced against a certain group of people and I treat those people badly, I'm not courteous to them, I'm actually maybe even obnoxious to them, I don't treat them fairly, I don't treat them properly, they're probably not going to like me very much, and over time, they're not going to respond too well to me. Now, in a lot of cases, I'll use that as evidence for why I'm right about stereotyping them. I'll say, see, they're angry and mean, they're no good, but I'm ignoring the fact that they're just responding to the way I treated them. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Make sure you know what that is. This chapter goes into personal attraction. Make sure you understand the importance of proximity and familiarity. We tend to develop positive feelings for those we see the most and get to know the best. This is one of the reasons why long-distance relationships don't work in general. One of the reasons. And homogamy. We are attracted to, by and large, in general, we are attracted to similarity, not things that are opposite to us. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, my parents are the opposite of each other, or I'm with somebody who's very different than me. First of all, I'm talking about being different in significant ways that are very, very important. I'm not talking about, you like certain kind of food and they like a different kind of food. I'm talking about your basic values and goals in life. Opposites do not attract in general. Does it happen? Sure. But if you take all the couples on earth and you study them, they are far more similar to each other than they are different. So homogamy is significant. People tend to end up, in terms of a couple, an intimate relationship with people that are just about as educated as them, just about as attractive as them, just about as religious as them, on down the line. Another important factor in interpersonal attraction, probably the most important factor, is reciprocal liking. If we know that somebody else really doesn't like us, really doesn't share our feelings for them, we tend to move on to somebody else. We tend to not like them as much. And when we know that they like us, that really feeds our feelings for them. And then that's how people start to fall in love and start to become really, really good friends. Is once I know that that person has the same feelings for me, it gets exciting. If they don't, my feelings for them start to dissipate. And by the way, even if it's somebody that doesn't like you, even if we're talking about a casual relationship, let's say somebody at work that you really don't get along with, but if you go into work and one of your friends at work says, hey, I was talking to so-and-so earlier, and they said some really nice things about you, you're going to like that person a little bit more after you hear that. Doesn't mean you're going to be friends with them, but you're going to feel better about them when you hear that they like you, that they think a lot of you. Now, in that situation, the first thing you may think is, well, what do they want? Maybe they want something from me. They're doing this on purpose to butter me up. And that might be valid. But again, in general, when we know somebody likes us, thinks highly of us, we tend to like them better. And in terms of aggression, the subject of aggression is also covered in this chapter. Biologically, testosterone is one of the big drivers of aggression. One of the reasons why men are far more overtly aggressive in terms of assault and things like that than women are. Women are more relationally aggressive or covertly aggressive than men are. Men and women both have testosterone, by the way. Men have 12 to 16 times as much testosterone as the average woman does. Social roles. The role you play can lead to aggressive behavior. The Zimbardo Stanford prison experiment, that's been a movie recently, demonstrated that very, very clearly. And also related to the subject of aggression is this idea of a bystander effect, of the fact that people don't want to get involved when they see someone in trouble. Your book mentions Kitty Genovese. Kitty Genovese, it's reported that, even though your book says it's not really clear how many people witnessed, she was assaulted and murdered. And while she was being assaulted, she screamed for help. And it was reported that about 38 different people saw her being assaulted that were in this neighborhood in New York City, and nobody helped her. And she eventually died. The more people that are around when something bad is happening to someone and they need help, the less likely you'll act. And the reason is obvious. You're waiting for somebody else to go first. The fewer the people that are around, the more likely you're going to act. If it's only you, and you know that you're the only chance they have of avoiding something terrible happening to them, you're much more likely to do something to help them. Okay? So, once again, make sure that you study those topics. That pretty much covers the exam. Again, questions 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And number 50 are freebies. So you get 8, actually. I said 7 before. It's 8 free points on this test. Good luck, and stay tuned for my video on the final exam. Good luck on this one tomorrow.